Hey everybody, welcome back to Travel Trailer Nation. Our 4,195-mile trip in the Alliance Delta heading first to West Texas and then up to Wisconsin certainly didn't go as planned, and if you watch some of my shorts, you'll know that's the truth. And there's just simply too much to talk about to do this in one video, so I'm going to break this up into 4 parts, and each part will drop, a week a week after the last episode. So we'll visit some great campgrounds. We're going to visit some not so great campgrounds. 2, as a matter of fact, that we couldn't wait to leave. We're going to deal with wildfire smoke and talk about some of the problems that we had with the Delta along the way. So hang on for some adventure and misadventure as we review this trip. Our 12-year-old grandson, Trent, would be joining us for about the first half of the trip, and we weren't really easing him into it with a weekend trip close to our home. Our first stop was Caprock Canyons State Park in West Texas, and this would be a one-day drive to Caprock on the 2nd of July to really miss that heavy July 4th traffic that you've come to expect. Now, for a 12-year-old, Caprock Canyons might not sound like the most exciting place to begin a vacation. There isn't a long list of attractions or a lot of things specifically designed to entertain kids. However, entertainment really wasn't the reason we were here. We came to Caprock Canyons to get away from the 4th of July fireworks. As most of you know, Eva's not a fan of loud booming noises, and Tammy and I are not big on medicating her, so we prefer to find a really quiet campground to get away from all of that, and Caprock Canyons is the perfect place to escape the fireworks. It's probably the most secluded and quiet state park in Texas. Being now that we're in July, it was hot, and when I say hot, I mean 3-digit heat that will end whatever outdoor plans you thought you might have had. But something else happened on this trip to Caprock that was a lot different than the last time Tammy and I had visited in May, and that's that the buffalo were everywhere. And on our previous trip, Tammy and I saw a grand total of 3 buffalo. We saw one, cross through the back of our campground. There was one that was blocking our campground, and we had to wait in another site for it to leave. And then there was one that came out on the trail. Well, this time, Trent got the full Caprock Canyons experience. He was able to see an entire herd, and we saw them more than once. And at one point, we actually got a picture of Trent with a buffalo casually grazing under a tree in the background, probably about 50 yards behind him. And that's probably not something he's going to see every day back at home. So despite the heat, Trent was always up for a hike, and we hit the trail several times. And what I thought might be the most boring part of the trip for a 12-year-old was actually probably a pretty good way to start his adventure. So we planned on staying at Caprock Canyons for 4 nights, and then I started watching the weather forecast, and really strong thunderstorms were being predicted for the day that we were scheduled to leave. And they were saying the likelihood was, over 95%. Now, I've changed travel plans before because of the weather, and I'm perfectly willing to do it again. And if I can avoid towing the Delta through severe thunderstorms or packing up in the rain, that's exactly what I'm going to do. So instead of waiting until our scheduled departure day, we packed everything up and we pulled out of Caprock Canyons a day early. So now we had to add another stop back into the trip. So we backtracked to Oklahoma City. I mean, that's going in the general direction we needed to go anyway. And we stayed at the Roadrunner RV Park, and that was a 6-hour drive. And I knew that Trent was probably going to be up for this because if we'd left as we originally planned, we probably would have been facing an 8 or 9 hour drive to our next stop. So going to the Roadrunner RV Park definitely broke the trip up a little bit. But for us, it was just a way to spend one night and then continue on to the camp, our next stop, our next campground. But Roadrunner had recently been through heavy storms of its own, and when we arrived, the site that we had selected wasn't available, so they moved us to another site on what they call the upper campground, which was fine with us. We weren't going to be there long enough for it to really matter. But I will say this, each time we used Roadrunner on this trip, something they offered didn't work. And this particular stay, the Wi-Fi wasn't working. They blamed it on the storm that had hit several days before, saying it just needed to reset. So I wasn't really sure why they weren't making that happen. The second time on our way home, the cable they advertised didn't work. And, really neither of these are big deals to us. But if you advertise them and you're charging for them, then you really need to work on having those available to the people that are coming in and camping. So on the flip side of all of this, though, the Roadrunner RV campground is a very nice spot to camp. They have level cement pads. They're close to everything you want to do in Oklahoma City. So that's the bonus there. So we set up the Delta, we spent the night, and the next morning it was time to pack everything back up and hit the road again. So our next destination was another one-night stop, the Joplin KOA. The Joplin KOA turned out to be one of the more disappointing stops on this trip. We paid $71 for a one-night stay, and that was after my KOA discount. And for what we found when we got here, or got to that KOA, I thought it was just way too much money. It is an enormous campground, and when we stayed there, it was just about empty. And in my opinion, it looks a little tired and run down. And the gentleman that was in the office that day had a pretty sour attitude, and I wasn't really impressed with his customer service. But everybody has a bad day now and then, and so I just shrugged it off. But what really frustrated us happened later that afternoon. Our campsite was quite a distance from the office and the laundry building, and I'm not sure, with it being that huge and empty, why he put us so far back from everything. But with temperatures pushing 100 degrees, Tammy and Trent decided to gather up all of our laundry, which at that point was quite a bit, and walk it all the way up to the laundry area. And that's when the owner came by on his golf cart and told him the laundry wasn't working. And, that's something he could have told us when we checked in. Here's your Wi-Fi code. Here's where the restrooms are. And oh, by the way, the laundry's out of service. That would have been good. It would have saved Tammy and Trent that walk up in the 100-degree heat. But what didn't really sit with me very well is he drove away. He could have offered them a ride back in the golf cart to the site in that kind of weather, but he didn't. So I was a little bit disappointed in that. And when you're paying $71 for an overnight campsite, I don't think it's unreasonable to really expect a little better experience than that. And, my opinion is avoid this KOA. Now, the highlight of my stay was finding a turtle on an early morning walk. Looked like a red ear slider to me. He was huge and, pretty friendly, actually, and Eva was not interested in that. Now, for a 12-year-old, this is probably where the reality of a long RV trip starts to really sink in. You drive for hours, you set up the trailer, you spend the night, you get up the next morning, you pack everything away, you hook up the travel trailer, and then climb back into the truck, and you do it all over again. But I'll give Trent a lot of credit. He's a really good traveler, and the long stretches in the truck didn't really seem to bother him much, which was a good thing because we still had a lot of miles ahead of us. But one of our next campgrounds was going to give us something other than weather to complain about, and this time changing campgrounds couldn't come soon enough, so stay tuned for that episode.